Hi all, this is Jan Almighty and welcome to this video. So once again, the Fischer game and once again his memorable game. We are still at the Mar del Plata tournament and he thought probably that this is one of his best tournaments because already we have seen 3 games being featured in his memorable list and only from this tournament, Mar del Plata of 1959. And in this game he is playing against the guy who is on his home field, Hector Decio Rossetto. So yeah, an Argentinian chess player. Found this nice picture of him, and let's just dive into the game. Why did this one make the list? Of course, Fischer starts with e4, his favorite opening move, and we see c5 by Rossetto. Knight to f3, continuing e6 and d4. So standard Sicilian stuff. Knight to d4 and now a6, something called a Khan variation, which essentially allows a c4 being played. So knight hasn't been played to f6, attacking this pawn, forcing knight to c3, and also, yeah, this is just in time, because every pretty much move from now on will allow Fischer to develop his pieces nicely. Queen to c7, and now we see knight to c3. This pawn is of course protected by this bishop. Knight to f6, attacking the pawn, but bishop to d3 is also allowed now because there is no knight on c6 attacking this knight. So knight comes to c6, but bishop to e3. And we see knight to d4 and bishop to d4. And now Rossetto goes for the exchanges of the bishops, bishop to c5. Another standard maybe for this opening, before capturing the knight, bishop to b4. So attacking this knight, which is, it will be pinned and the bishop is already played to e3. So it could be kind of problematic, or playing bishop to e7, standard Sicilian move for the bishop, because most of the time this bishop can be a pest on g5. But okay, Rossetto has the idea that he wants to exchange dark square bishops, and essentially Fischer doesn't have too much choice. But he plays bishop to c2. When the bishops will be exchanged, the queen will come on a very nice central square on d4. We see d6 now, and castles by Fischer. Bishop to d7, finishing the development, and now knight to a4. So Fischer goes for this idea where he definitely wants to exchange dark square bishops now, because there is this d6 pawn that is kind of weak. And Rossetto goes for it, and bishop captures and queen captures. Now it was a good chance to actually play e5, and when the queen moves, have additional pressure to this pawn by playing bishop to c6. While the queen is here, knight to b6 can always be a threat, and moves such as these. But Rossetto plays a rook to d8, moving the rook from this a8 square, which will be attacked with tempo with knight to b6, and also putting it on this very good square where when the bishop moves, of course, the pawn will be attacked. The pawn will be defended, sorry. Rook from f to d1, additional pressure, and now castles by black. Rook from a to c1, and now Fischer has finished his development. One other thing that he needs to do is figure out where will he put his knight. But Rossetto helps him with it, because he plays queen to a5, and essentially knight to c3 seems like a perfectly logical move to make. Just bring the knight back. He has done his job, forcing the exchange of the dark square bishops. But Fischer has another idea. He plays queen to b6, which doesn't lose the piece, because you cannot capture with the queen, because of course the knight is defended with the bishop, and the queen is hanging. Queen to g5 seems like an idea, but here Rossetto goes for so queen to g5, of course allowing queen to d6. But this is all okay, because after bishop to a4, you might think that you will capture twice here and give checkmate, but bishop to e8 is back in time. So Rossetto could have gone for this variation, but he decided maybe not, and yeah, just gone for the queen exchange. What is the simplest? But now all of a sudden Fischer is in a very active position with his knight. He still needs to find out where will he put this bishop. Doesn't look too good. He is defending on e4, but maybe there is some better square for it. Bishop to c6 is played, of course, attacking twice on e4, and now f3 defending, and knight to d7. Two options are presented now to Fischer. Do you want to capture on d7, or do you want to play on d5? And Fischer, as he played d5, going for more active play. And here, of course, if you capture with the pawn captures, and the bishop cannot go anywhere, so that was the whole idea. Fischer didn't sacrifice anything here. But Rossetto captures with the bishop. So here, once again, two options, and both are equally good, I would say, but it depends on what approach do you want to have. What approach do you want to have for the future in this game and for the end game? And Fischer, I think, chose this correctly. He captures with the e pawn. If you would capture with the c pawn, then e5 can be played, and nothing is stopping something like rook to c8, exchanges on the c file, and essentially this is pretty much a drawish opening, drawish endgame. If bishop to a4, b5 can be played. After that, rook to c8 and knight to b8 stops rooks coming to c6 and also defends a6. This should be pretty much fine. So probably because of that reason, Fischer decided to capture with this pawn. E5 was played, and now b4. So he wants to, open up the queen side, maybe create some passed pawns with having these 4 pawns against these 3 pawns. And this is an okay idea. It works very well. So here g6 is played by Rossetto. He has a different approach. He wants to play f5 and maybe prepare e4. But Fischer goes bishop to a4 immediately, attacking the knight, and now b6 is played. Rook to d3, an excellent move, of course, so you don't want to play rook to d2, so that your only option is rook to c2, doubling up on the c file and going for c5. Rather have multiple options open. So if you play rook to d3, you have rook to c3, but also rook to a3, going for this undefended a pawn. We see f5 and now rook to a3, as I said, going for the pawn. Knight to b8, defending the pawn, but this allows c5. And a very good attack at that, because now, after all of these exchanges, in the end, okay, of course, rook will defend on d5, but even if the rook moves, the rook cannot capture on d5 because the king is on g8 on this very nice diagonal where the bishop can come at any time. But we see pawn captures, pawn captures, pawn captures, and rook captures on c5. So everything is okay here, but in the end, Fischer is the one with the passed pawn, and he will try to take advantage of that. King to g7 is played, moving from this diagonal, an okay move, but it allows a rook to b3, and now rook to b7 is a threat, bring the rook on the 7th rank. And Rossetto was probably kind of scared here already, so he played rook to f7 immediately. But this allows a very nice endgame move by Fischer, d6. And you will notice in this endgame, Fischer makes a couple of stunning moves that kind of just improve and improve on his position until he just gets into the position where black doesn't have anything to play. So d6 is played. He's essentially given up a pawn. Okay, sorry, wrong wording there. He tempts black to capture the pawn, and if he does, then the knight will of course be captured. So Rossetto doesn't go for it. He plays knight to d7, move the knight out of harm's way, but this allows rook to c7. Now the rooks can come on the 7th rank because the knight has kind of blocked this rook on f7. So the whole idea with rook to f7 is kind of faulty. So knight to f8 moves. The rook is now again attacking on the 7th rank, but now the other rook can come on the 7th rank. This rook is attacked twice and you have to capture. Rook to c7 and pawn captures on c7. And all of these couple of moves were made spectacularly because in the end, with this pawn which was here, only in a couple of moves he is already on the 7th rank. Black has to play to c8, and now the moment of truth. The real test of Fischer's endgame, and maybe a really good test for you. What is the best move in this situation here? As it seems, the only way to proceed is for white to actually go about attacking this rook on c8 so that you can push your pawn to promotion. And that would be a very nice idea, but as you can see, this knight is very well good, so he is very good at defending these two squares. These two squares where the bishop can come to actually attack this rook. So how would you go about solving this issue? Do you want to go directly at attacking this rook? So we can do that. So the idea is there any other square that maybe we can attack the rook? And of course b7 isn't a good square because then you kind of block your rook. So if rook plays to a7, for example, still defending this pawn, if you come with a bishop to b7, rook can just capture. So nothing from that. But maybe a6. But let's, for example, try to calculate how much moves do we need for that. 1, 2, 3, and moving of the rook is 4, and then we are attacking the rook. But the king needs, okay, if we move the bishop to b3, 1, 2, 3, and he is already attacking the rook, and in the fourth move, when the rook will be attacked, he can just capture on c7. So this, by simple calculation, doesn't work. So we need to find some other idea. And this move that Fischer makes essentially brings out his brilliancy. Bishop to b3. Okay, it is the same move that we had that I mentioned in the idea of going after a6, but of course in that idea it is one move too slow. But we have to think about what is happening now. Of course, we are still eyeing this e6 square, so if the knight moves, the bishop can come here, and okay, the knight can only move to d7, but then the bishop would be attacking on c8, so this doesn't work. But what happens if, for example, king starts going after the pawn, king to f6? Now all of a sudden, what has changed? This knight, which is on f8, which was previously defended, is now undefended, and this allows a very simple rook to b8. So that was the whole point behind bishop to b3, and it's a brilliant move because essentially it stops king for actually moving at all. Your knight cannot move because the bishop is eyeing e6, and your rook cannot move because rook to b8 is a threat and pushing of the pawn to promotion. So all of your pieces are paralyzed, and Fischer takes a very good advantage of it. So yeah, in this situation here, if you capture, you lose the knight. If you don't capture, you lose the rook, because the king isn't in time to actually go and help the rook. So after bishop to b3, Rossetto figured out this, and he played a5. Of course, now Fischer could have played bishop to c4 because of this idea. It works now. Yeah, essentially the rook has to capture it, or if king comes, then you pick up the rook and you're in exchange up. But probably Fischer didn't want to go for this. He played a4 and kind of he kept things intact. They played a couple of more moves with the pawns, because essentially the whole time the same idea applies. The king cannot move. G4, pawn captures on g4 and pawn captures on g4, and Rossetto in this position resigned the game, because essentially he cannot do anything. The pieces are paralyzed. He can give up the pawns, but after that he just loses the game. So yeah, this is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this very nice Fischer bishop to b3 move. And yeah, this is pretty much it for this video. That being said, I would like to thank you for watching it, and I will see you next time.